books compared to movies.
Mhm.
And books is I see it more as a for the self-help books I read in particular, but I see them more of an investment rather than
Ooh,
entertainment.
okay.
Whereas movies, I think the general narrative around movies is it's more entertainment. I don't really feel like I invested in myself by watching a movie.
Okay.
And that's just because of the topics. Even if I watch documentaries, I kind of watch it for
Right.
entertainment piece rather than trying to learn something new.
We're watching most of the time, me and you, for pleasure. When
Mhm.
we read with intent to take something away. And even that might be pleasurable for us. Like me and you'll be hype about learning something. We send each other pictures of like book paragraphs. So
Yeah,
it's also kind of
nerds.
doubles as, yeah, low key.
Yo, B, let's go. You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast Rebel Wisdom. Excited to be back this week. This week we got a topic for you. It's going to be looking at the comparison between books and movies. It's kind of probably going to take on a bunch of different paths, but I think it's an interesting one nonetheless, and we're excited to talk about it. So what's going on, B? Let's just dive right into it, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Cool. We'll start with, just to give some ground context, I think we should talk about what we typically read or what we like to read, and then maybe what movies we typically like to watch or have been watching lately. I'll kick it off with the books and say I'm a big, maybe to a detriment, self-help guy. It's got me in a chokehold. Like I feel like I can't get away from self-help or just maybe like the kind of relationship building or financial books. That's been my world for a little bit now. The most recent thing I'm reading though does have to do with relationships, but I think that's definitely that those genres are kind of my comfort zone, which is the self-help realm. And so I mean, as me and you have discussed before, I'm trying to force myself out of that pocket and like
Hmm.
force myself to expand what I'm reading. But that's definitely where I'm at. Well, what about you?
I mean, pretty much the same thing for you, or same thing you said. It's majority, probably 75% of the books I
Oh
read
yeah.
are self help. To include, you know, to include like the typical self help books that everyone's used to, and then the finance portion of it. I like to read a lot of psychology books. I think the human mind is so interesting and just crazy. And I do read here and there about history on the
Ooh.
topics. On the ones I don't really like history too much, but on particular events, I'm very curious to hear about. So I'll read a book on that. But again, yeah, same to your point. I'm really trying to get away from the self help, finance, investing, all that stuff, just because I've read so many of them, and I'm trying to, I guess, make my horizons much more. So you can talk about
Mm.
random topics and you can just rattle things off. I think that's very cool that some people are able to do that. So, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it will be still nonfiction for the most part.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nonfiction, good call. And that's a good point. Like within, so we're both. It's established that we're very much proponents of self help. But within self help, which you kind of alluded to, there's so many other categories. Even the ones I
Hmm.
named, I think fall in self help. Psychology, relationships, finances, kind of all, I think personally, can be lumped into self
Hmm.
help. So we'll certainly look to expand that. All right, I'll let you kick it off on movies. What do you typically go to? And also, I'm gonna say it now. At the end of this podcast, I think we should give one book recommendation each and one movie recommendation, or that we like each. So
Okay.
if you have one you're about to speak to, I'll say save it to the end. But what typical genre or type of movies do you like to watch?
So you know this, but I barely ever watch
You
movies.
really don't?
I just don't watch movies too much,
Yeah.
but out of the one that I've watched, throughout, I think one of the movies that I watched probably like 8 to 9, maybe even 10 times.
All right. I think I know what you're about to say. You don't have to give a movie. You can give like a category.
Oh, okay, okay,
Give the
okay, okay. Oh,
category.
right.
Yeah,
Okay, okay,
like
okay,
type
okay.
of movie. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I definitely like sci-fi
Okay, okay.
and some little bit of action. It doesn't need to have
Ooh,
action.
it's not what I was expecting. Okay.
Yeah, and very, very, very big on documentaries.
I forgot about that one. Okay, okay, that's good because that's not what I would have. I probably would have said documentary for you. I would have said something else, but that's good. Okay, I this is gonna throw some people off. I'm a big rom com guy, and my
I don't.
girlfriend
What is
is
that?
romantic comedy.
Rom-com. Okay,
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Yes. Yes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Romantic comedies, which are, and I say it's gonna throw people off because it's I don't know. It's typically associated with like women love rom coms. I'm a sucker for a
Huh?
good. I'm a sucker for a good romantic comedy movie.
Like Crazy Stupid Love?
Yes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yes. Um, so that, but I also like a good like thriller and
Oh,
or action.
I can't watch any scary stuff, dude.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't.
Not even necessarily scary, just like suspense, like stuff popping out, things like that. It don't have to be like The Conjuring with with like ghosts or spirits or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, thriller and action are up there. And honestly, just a good old comedy, like something funny.
Yeah, comedy. Yeah, it's
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Which I thought you were gonna lump that in yours, but yeah, a good comedy. So that I just wanted to baseline kind of where we're at and what we consume more so to let everybody know like where we stand. But now we can kind of get into it in this comparison of books and movies, right? So the overarching question is to the general public, right? What's better, a book or a movie? That's an extremely vague question. We've actually had this discussion between ourselves like a while back, and you can take it in so many avenues. So we'll try to dissect them, but you can have pure entertainment value, you can have educational value, you can have um, I don't know, like from a creative aspect, right? There's so many ways I think to dissect or compare rather books and movies, but we're gonna try to total all those different lanes up and just see overarching. I guess what you can take away the most from. Maybe that's a better way to frame it. I don't know, book or movie. So I guess we'll start with what do you like? What do we think? I think today from an accessibility standpoint, like I'll just even say like what's easier to get, which I think both are pretty easy, but with we all hear like these streaming platforms,
Yeah.
my vote might have to be movies, man.
Accessibility. No, absolutely. I mean, like once you okay, so obtaining it is one thing.
Obtain right,
It's so easy to stream it because everyone's pretty much subscribed to a streaming service of some sort,
they
or
got it.
they're mooching off with someone that's
Right,
already subscribed to it, right?
right,
Which I mean, I do that too.
yeah.
No shame in that.
Shh, don't
But
say Netflix.
so yeah, once you obtain it, if you consider the obtaining part, I think movies is so much easier to get. But once you have it in hand for both of them, I guess could be figuratively or literally,
Right.
it should be the same to open up a book or on the
Mm,
Kindle or to watch a movie.
yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie, I'm team books, but there is a friction to open
Oh,
that book rather than opening the movie.
great
It's
work.
so easy
Yes.
to just click play and just go
Mm-hmm.
numb for the next 2 hours.
Right. Dude, couldn't agree more. I was gonna say the friction too, or like, yeah, the barrier to starting a book or a
Yeah.
movie. And I'm just trying to think of all the ways. So you got streaming platforms for anything, yeah, pretty much digital. Or you said Kindle, that's good. I mean, good old TV or cable, which I think is going away due to the streaming. Which all trying to get anything free again, unless you have someone else's account. It's pretty much all there's some cost associated. So now I'm thinking like books. You got like Amazon, I guess you can, or any e-commerce, I get website where you can order a physical copy. You got your typical Walmart, Target, bookstore, wherever you might buy a book from. I'll be honest, I don't hear about, nor do I go to any libraries. I don't know how big those are again, because that when we talk about
Hmm.
money, I mean, a library, I guess you'd have to have a pass maybe or something. But I'm trying to think the cheapest ways to get either,
I mean,
and
you
I
can
don't.
torrent both just to get everything for free.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then with books, you also have audiobooks too, which I guess adds another layer
Right. Right.
that we haven't touched on yet. So I think there's going to be a small fee associated. Yeah, you could torrent. Yeah, with both. Maybe it may be easier to get movies for free.
Yeah. No, I agree with
Not
that. Yeah.
yeah, but so like I think you said that I think the friction is slightly lower for movies, which could play into effect on the accessibility.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so so movies might take that one. Although there's so many ways to get either, but I certainly think movies is more accessible and has less friction to starting. Um, okay, so that's pretty good there. And I think this is going to be a big one. From an I don't want to say educational standpoint, but just the ability to draw from what you're watching or reading. I think I I think books do a better job of that, and only because I like books. Personally, I think I'm team book as well. Here's another caveat, side note, before I get too in depth in that. I have never read a book where I've also watched the movie. I think that's important to note too. Have you ever read a book
Hmm.
where there's also a movie to it?
No, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, and only say that's important because for that instance, that'd be the best correlation to see, like, okay, both are the same story, same plot, but you can kind of see which one as the viewer or reader you got more from. But I don't have that experience because I've never read or watched a movie
Hmm.
and book. I will say though, for those Harry Potter fans out there, can't say I subscribe to that those people, but I have heard that the books are typically better than the movies. But again, that's all secondhand.
That's what I mean. That's what I hear most of the time, for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
And so the one thing I don't know is I don't know whether if the actual book. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not confident 100%
Hmm.
certain that the books are actually better than the movies. It. I think there is some sort of bias because people typically read the book first when they will go watch the movie.
Okay.
That's one piece. So, they're getting the second, and then their expectation might not be identical to what the book was, which is fine. It's just a different product. And the second is the time invested. You can read those big novels for like, 10,
Oh yeah.
12 plus hours. Maybe I'm just super slow, but it takes time. It's definitely more than 2 hours. And you hop into the movie, and now it's 2 hours. So it's like, it feels like you worked hard to obtain that story or the narrative or the knowledge
Mm,
or whatever through a book, whereas movies, you just kind of sit there. You're going to be engaged, so hopefully,
right.
you get my point.
You said a lot in that statement. You touched on the, I'll call it the emotional contribution. Like you're more invested in a book because it typically does take longer, um, and just the time. I mean, those kind of go hand in hand, like the emotional investment and the time it
Mm-hmm.
takes to absorb that whatever the source is. So I think those are two things. So yeah, I don't. I think there is leaning on that emotional connection piece. I think there is more of a you almost like form more of a relationship with a book
Yeah, no, I think so
than
too.
a
I think so too.
movie. Yeah, because of that investment, right? I think, and one thing I like about books is the ability to kind of like quick like reread something. Because there's often times where I'm like,
Oh,
even
yeah,
if it's
yeah.
just because like it's I want to emphasize it or maybe even highlight or underline it. You have that ability, or just like wait, like what was that? Like I need to go back, need to redigest it. So I love the ability to do that. Now, obviously, with a movie, you can like kind of stop, rewind, but it's just there's kind of friction with that. The ability to redo it in a book, you just like glance your eyes back over. Where a movie, you
Mhm.
kind of gotta pick up remote, kind of go back, time up exactly where you wanted it. Or if you're in a theater, you can't go back.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think the emotional investment in a book is more intense than a movie, um, because like you said, it takes longer. You're like forming that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate that. Now maybe some people don't like that. Like I just kind of want to get to it. Like I know people that'll go into a movie and like look up the ending of the movie like before they
What?
watch. Like they want to know how it ends. I would never. But some people kind of maybe just want to get through it quick and like, hey, I just want a quick plot.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know. I got a couple friends like that. So that's interesting. Then maybe that appeals more. But yeah, I would say
Mm.
the investment the investment into the material. I think that's a huge one. Um, so okay, using that to kind of go back to like what I was saying from a what you get away piece or educational piece, I also think books do a better job, kind of because also what we were just talking about, you can change the pace at which you kind of read if something's light or maybe I don't know, not as you don't deem as important, you can kind of skim through it, or you can kind of read slower if you want to like really digest it. Again, that ability to go back, which for me, it is way better. It gives me that like hands-on feel where I can digest it better. Even if I want to stop and think on something, again, I don't have to pick up, I don't have to pause a movie. I can kind of just like ponder that line or that thought, and then I'm like, okay, I can continue. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think I get more out of it because it's on my pace
Mm-hmm.
from a book. I don't know if you have any like thoughts on like how you read.
Yeah. So with books, like it gets very intense for me sometimes.
Mm,
Where I do okay, so I do too with a movie, but with books, I just never had this in a movie, and that may be linked to my lack of time spent watching movies. But I don't think it is. Maybe not. But sometimes I'll read like a chapter in a book, and it hits me so hard. I'm just like, oh my god, like I need to close this book and just think about what that paragraph or what that
yeah.
chapter just talked about. Because with the self help things, like it can be very relevant to the challenges that you're facing or the future direction that you want to go to for your life. And I don't want to keep reading just to diminish the point that the author was making in that book. I really want to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I started to do that more because I've read very good books I enjoyed multiple times at this point, and every time I read it, I feel like I get a new ideas from reading
Okay.
the same thing,
Okay.
which is kind of I don't know how like I the only thing I thought of at the time was like maybe I just read over it, didn't really think about it. That's why it kind of didn't stick to me, and I just don't get that emotional hit
Okay.
right from the movie. And I mean that's just one piece of the education
Right.
side.
Have you ever went back and watched a movie and got something different from it the next time watching it? I have, and I also have a theory on this, but
I
I want to see you.
have, but the movies that I watched like most of the like multiple times, like, there's not too many ideas to
Right.
grab and apply it to your life.
Right.
Like I watched Finding Nemo probably about 30
Right.
times for because of my siblings when they were younger, they were playing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could take some. I guess you could take some
Yeah.
life lessons, but it's not like oh, like the 13th time I
Sure.
watched it, it's like
Sure.
this is like a radical idea that you
Sure.
really need to pause the movie and think about.
Right. I think so okay, I'll categorize this as like the playback value, like a book when you play it back metaphorically,
Okay.
you can get maybe more nuggets vice a movie. Actually, and on that thought, I want to introduce a bias, I think, for us, me and you specifically. I think the books we consume, we're kind of looking for takeaways, where the movies we
Hmm.
watch,
It
it's
may not.
more pleasurable. It's more of a
Okay, no,
pleasurable
you're
experience.
right.
If we
You're
were
right.
watching
Definitely.
more TV, like you said, documentaries where we're looking to take stuff away, maybe that'll change a little bit. But or if we're reading books that are just kind of pure pleasure, or more for, maybe more fiction, maybe that would change. But I think the literature me and you read, vice the movies and stuff we digest there, kind of gives us an advantage for books on this one.
Okay, no,
Would
that's
you
a
agree?
very good point. We're not comparing,
Yes.
apples to apples.
Right.
So
This
I'll
is
give
a
you that.
big time apples to oranges moment. Okay.
'Cause I was thinking about, because I brought up Finding Nemo. I was like, I literally thought about the same point before you said it. I was like, dude, like if you compare that to books, that would be like Dr. Seuss books.
Yes.
It's like, so okay, it's definitely not a fair comparison. Yeah, no, you're right.
With though, I will give movies its credits. For movies actually like Finding Nemo, I think, and this is something with what you said made me think about the time in which you read or watch the movie. And this is kind of obvious though. You read something when you're younger, you're gonna take away one thing. You read something when you're older, you're gonna get something completely different. There's a lot of hidden meanings in those movies and life lessons as well to pick away that kids, may get a cinematic visual stimulation, I guess,
Stimulation.
stimulation, and an adult watching it might be like, oh wow, like that was kind of deep, but like no something no kid is gonna pick up.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if
You're right.
random. I don't know if you've ever seen I don't know if it's Disney, but the animated movie Zootopia about like all these animals.
Nope.
They're okay, but there's like a whole bunch of
Oh,
societal undertones in it.
I think
About
I've seen
what
clips.
animals.
There's like a lion.
there's a lot. It's just it's if you watch it as an adult, it's like
Wait,
I was like, whoa, it's kinda
Madagascar?
deep.
Is
Not
Madagascar a movie?
no. Another
That is a
animal
movie, right?
animal movie, not yeah.
Okay, that might
It
be
is.
what I was thinking about, maybe.
Yeah, there's also a King Julian in that movie, so shout out to me.
Ah.
But yeah, those I think that's cool how movies can do that. Appeal to two different like age groups simultaneously. That's cool. Whereas actually a book may not have that ability. I mean, it could, but no adult. I feel like less adults, unless you're reading like bedtime stories to your kids, is really gonna read books geared towards younger kids as much as like adults are much more likely to watch animated movies, whether it's for nostalgia or with their kids, or sometimes animated movies are just good. I'm not gonna lie, I'll throw on like an Incredibles or something like I think adults watch more movies that are geared to kids. So
Okay.
there may be more crossover in movies from that aspect than books. Is like crossing audiences. That may be a tally for books, or excuse me, for movies. But back to our original point, what like the takeaway value. I don't want to say educational again because some of the movies aren't geared for education, but I think is a little bit stronger in books for some of the reasons you said.
We can compare the books that we read to the doc. I think documentaries would be the most
Yes.
close, right?
Yes.
Equivalent on the
Yes.
movie side. But I'm just thinking, I watch a lot of documentaries. I do. I really
Yeah.
enjoy them.
Yeah, they're good.
I do learn from them. But a lot of the information that I get from documentaries, it doesn't stick around to me. I may be able to recall certain facts. I'm like, oh yeah, like in this documentary it said this. Whereas maybe books, I'm just getting in so much more information. I may percentage wise, I might retain more from a documentary, but like knowledge itself, I just get so much more out of a book. I'm playing devil's, or I'm gonna represent both sides just to be fair, but it may be because documentaries are 30 minutes, an hour long, whereas books, I'm reading it for 6 hours. So of course, I'm gonna have more things to take away from that.
Okay.
At this, but for books, because the topic is, I think it's more relevant. That's so subjective to
You think
person to
books
person.
are more relevant?
Yes, than documentaries.
Okay.
How many like animals or blue ocean documentaries are out there? Like thousands.
Yeah,
I've seen so many of those. Like wildlife, bugs, right? I would say, besides a interest factor of you trying to learn those things, I think you could take away from reading like a personal finance book. If you're not really into that, or if you don't know too much about the personal finance side, then maybe where you should be. I feel like the takeaway is just so much more and so much more relevant that's applicable to everyday life.
I see what you're saying now. I wasn't following it for. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. Okay, so a counter argument to that is I kind of got two. One, is what if there's a personal finance documentary? Why is
Is
it you
there?
think?
I mean, I'm
Shit,
sure there is a
I
couple,
haven't I
but
haven't seen one. And you said I want to clarify. Did you say you retain more from like documentaries or books? I thought you said you retain more from documentaries.
no, I was talking about like percentage wise. Like
Okay.
if documentaries, if I retain 20% of the knowledge that was given in a documentary,
Okay.
even though I may retain only 10% from a book,
That
that
10% is more.
10% is bigger or more in value than
Got it.
20%. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Good clarification. Okay. Okay. Now I understand. Um. Okay. Got you. So okay. So we said so books. So you think there's a more how do we want to how do I want to summarize that? The information you think the volume of information is more in a book, even if we're comparing like a book and a documentary of the same category. So even if you
Absolutely.
retain less, it may be more valuable. Like you may get more out of it.
Hmm. And I think it's just more you can just learn about something and go take that action.
Mm,
Whereas documentaries is like more information, not like, hey, here's information, go you should go do this, like go take this action or change your mindset about something. That's I think books are much better in that regard.
okay. So
Like
easier to
you
just
read
go ahead.
yeah. You read like comic books like Habits,
I haven't
right?
read that
James
one. No,
Clear.
I
If
haven't
you
read it.
haven't read it,
No,
you need to read it.
no.
But James Clear basically I mean, it's a well written book. I think it's well marketed as well.
Okay. Yeah, I see it everywhere.
But there's so many pieces like, hey, here's how you overcome this. You should go do this. And you can put the book down and the next day or immediately you can just go do that. I don't get that from movies. You can learn about ideas. Like one of the arguments I had with one of my buddies that's definitely pro movies, team movies,
Yeah,
is like you can learn stuff from watching Shrek about
absolutely.
finding love is not about what you look on the outside, it's
Yes.
about the inside.
Okay.
I got that, right? But it doesn't talk about it's such a blatant I like it's a good idea and then the Shrek and Fiona is going through the entire movie to figure that out eventually. But then on a book that could be the first sentence that you read about it and then dive into it for the rest of the book.
Okay.
Whereas they're working towards that message rather than the message could be stated and you can learn more about it. I think that's more applicable to your life,
Hmm.
and then it'll just help you more.
Okay. All right. I think that's a good point. I think this is another apples to oranges situation though, because I think you can also watch a love movie that's not like teaching you directly, like you said, plainly stating like love is not all about looks, but it subliminally gives that in the story, like a Shrek story, just any run of the mill love story, where you have to derive the meaning out. It's not giving you the
Mm,
meaning and teaching about it. Because there's also probably a documentary out there that's like, I'm sure about like the love languages or about love that's actually like teaching you. But again, from a volume perspective, I think this speaks to your point better. I think there's more books out there because there's also books about love stories, like a Shrek like story. But I
mhm,
think there's more books that also teach you about love and people's experiences in love and gives you an opportunity to directly learn how to foster love, how to find love,
mhm.
what love looks like. Where in movies, that I think that exists as well. And again, this is for me not being an analyst or any specialist on movies. I think more of the time, if it's a love story, it's for cinematic value. And yeah, like I'm looking to feel good. Like they're giving you a production that wants to make you feel good and maybe elicit an emotional reaction, vice trying to give you a takeaway. And if it does give you a takeaway, it's embedded in the story. It's not
Mhm.
like a chapter title where it's easy to kind of see. So
Okay.
now with that, so yeah, I think just more exists about books, but I think books also have like Shrek equivalents. So with that, saying that, do you think books and movies have different goal like missions? Like I'd be interested like do you think more books are written with the intent to like teach and more movies are written with the intent to stimulate,
No,
or you
I,
know?
I do think that books compared to movies,
Mm-hmm.
and books is I see it more as a for the self help books I read in particular, but I see them more of an investment rather than
Ooh,
entertainment.
okay.
Whereas movies, I think the general narrative around movies is it's more entertainment. I don't really feel like I invested in myself by watching a movie.
Okay.
And that's just because of the topics. Even if I watch documentaries, I kind of watch it for
Right.
entertainment piece rather than trying to learn something new. It, I mean, that's like a side effect that I get from watching movies, right?
That's a great. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. I think so I feel like movies, so movies and books, I'm trying to see, and this would be a great episode to like have somebody on that does, is well versed in watching movies and reading the same books or reads something different than us. I just like to get like opposing opinions and see what they think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think movies and books maybe appeal to different, again, I don't want to say learning styles because I don't want to box it to educational, but just like perception styles, I guess, maybe how you perceive things. Because I'm sure there are people out there that are maybe like hyper creatives or that benefit from visual stimulus or motion. And there's probably some people where that's distracting. So they're like, hey, I need a book. It's just words, graphs, charts, still visuals where I can look. And some people are probably like, yeah, I do better when the words are associated with like actions and motion. So I think that could like create a divide or a bias to like why somebody likes a movie or book too.
Okay, so that's a good point because I'm trying to do the best I can and trying to compare it apples to apples,
It's
but it's
hard.
going to be very hard to with
Right.
movies and books because they just have like we talked about. I think they have generally a different intent
Right.
for the books that we read.
Right.
I mean, I get it. There's like Harry Potter books too. That's just there to entertain. That's it, right?
Right.
So just kind of going off the tangent from movies, but another argument could be made. It's like, hey, here's a book about investing 101, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about like a YouTube video that's geared towards just learning about the same content, same material inside a book, but just on a video form?
Okay.
So now I think that's more. It's not movies, but
Right. It's not a movie. Yeah. Yeah.
it's visuals, right?
Digital
it's
content. Yeah.
digital content, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I
Okay.
think that might be a more of a fair comparison, especially on the education piece.
On the educational side, I think you make a great point. Yes. Ooh, that'd be a whole nother. Yeah. Okay, that's good. I was gonna stem from what we were talking about from like an imagination standpoint, comparison with visualization, which again kind of goes to how the person is wired and what you take away. I think visualization. I mean, I think it's obvious, right? There's comic books and picture books and visual books as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I was a visual person, speaking strictly visual, I'm sure movies would be more appealing or document, even if we want to go into the digital realm.
So I just pulled up a little picture on Google, but
Okay.
I've seen this. I'm sure everyone's seen it at some point in their life.
Yes.
But it's the levels of like, if you do this, you only retain X amount of stuff.
Okay.
But when you teach others, you retain 80% of whatever,
Right.
that chart. And then this does say that audio visual gives you more retention or the higher ability to learn than reading.
Yes.
Which
it's subjective.
I guess I do agree.
Yes.
I'm trying to find the missing link on.
Yeah.
I agree with the visual audio, just like a YouTube video.
Right.
I think you're able to learn more, but then why is it that I keep going back to books and try to get knowledge from that?
So, and I think I have the answer because I think, in kind of what you said, it's just like they have intent for what they want their audiences to receive. We have intent as the consumer. When we usually watch movies, or I'll even, I can't say digital content. We'll stick with movies because that's our title, right? Books and movies. We're watching most of the time, me and you, for pleasure. When we read with intent to take something away. And even that might be pleasurable for us. Like me and you'll be hype about learning something. We send each other pictures of like book paragraphs. So
Yeah.
it's also kind of
Nerds.
doubles as low key, doubles as like pleasure, but we're looking for something in a specific category. So I think that's why our intent as consumers leans towards books. Because I can ask you, right, when you're like, dude, I just want to like relax, like I want a good laugh, I want a good emotional story. You can pick up a funny book. You can pick up. Why don't we pick up pleasurable books? Why don't we read fiction?
Because when you're trying to relax, like reading is like an active thing, regardless of what that picture just said.
Okay.
It takes more energy and brain power for me to read.
Okay.
And that increases my engagement and the ability to learn. But on a movie, like I could be half asleep for most of the time, and I get the general idea of what happened. Whereas books, like if you zone out for 2 to 3 pages, I'm just like, I have zero clue what just happened.
Yes.
Zero idea. So you have to go reread it.
Yes.
So I think the level of attentiveness or how much energy you need to gain value from books versus movies, I think it requires more energy and attention for the book side. That's why when you're trying to relax, you just rather watch movies. And I'm the same way too.
Yes.
Never have I thought, oh, let me relax, go grab a book.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Trying to circle back to your original question, why is it that audio visual is like, I guess statistically you get more from it? I think it just
2 senses.
Yes, I was gonna say it maximizes stimulation again, like 2 senses versus 1. Whereas a book is kind of just getting at one. That's exactly what I was gonna say. But to your point, I feel like once you lock into a book, once you get past the point, like once it really grabs and like hold your attention. And again, could be very subjective. I think because it is more, maybe it requires more action. Like you have to consciously be in it. Where, like there you do action in a movie. Like you said, you're kind of sitting back, not doing action. Although there's more stimulus. For a book, it requires that initial action. Mm-hmm. You can get more from it, and then it goes back to what we said before about the volume. There's just so much. If you miss some, you're still getting a takeaway. So yeah, that's an awesome talking point. I think that audio visual,
which I think is a good way to bring it up now, and you know the story, but for people when I talk to people in general, right, and the books and learning and stuff like that comes up, because every day at work during lunch, I usually eat like a very quick snack, or I just don't eat at all, and I just read during lunch because that's I have to take a lunch at work, which I don't even want to. I rather work during that time and just go home early. But I have to take a lunch, so I rather just make use of it, right?
Yes.
But this is definitely an excuse, but I started learning English at a much later point in my life than natural, U.S. born English speakers. That might be right. It could be an excuse, but I read super, 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 super slow, very slow. And when I'm reading super, super slow, it's so like I don't know if my brain just gets bored, is I just don't pick up stuff very well.
Interesting.
To how I overcame that is, and there's a big, big, big con, which is it gets pricey. But for every single book I read, I buy the audiobook too.
Wow.
And with that, that's the visual and the audible side of it, right? And it really does, it does 2 things. Is I think I do pick up more information, and I can also I can finish that book in 5 hours instead of taking 12, because audiobooks is on a consistent time that you can even speed up, because usually the times 1, the regular speed is way too slow. They're talking like this.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big times 1 guy. There's occasions I'll speed it up. Yes, dude.
But some books, like I just want to like the history books and stuff. I don't need to get every single detail. I just want to know what happened. Like I'll read it at like times 3.
Yes.
So
Okay.
like a thick book,
Yeah.
I'll be able to finish in like 6-7 hours.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. To your point, or one of our points from earlier, and I think this is why I like times one. I try, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but I'm like actively thinking about it as I'm hearing it, which is why I kind of like books, because I can, when I'm reading, you can do a quick pause.
Mm.
Like you said, sometimes you just close the chapter and go kind of sit with what you just read. But I can really engage with it. Where if it's going too fast, and I mean I'm probably just a slow thinker too, to be honest. I'll be real. But if it's going too fast, I'm hearing the words and stuff, but I'm not like actively thinking about what's going on. I'm just like trying to get literally what he said, and not the full idea behind what they're saying, the concept they're proposing. So yeah, I just keep it at normal time most of the time. Sometimes, depending on what I'm reading, I'll do speed it up. But I think that's awesome that most of your audiobooks are books. Like I would probably benefit from that, to be honest. Like you said,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more costly, but could be a huge benefit. I think that's awesome. Um, on the imagination visualization piece too, obviously you get the visualization from books, or excuse me, from movies, which is awesome. I think a lot of people very much enjoy that. But I think imagination, and this is my personal opinion, just in life is just such a cool individualized thing. When you have the ability, when you hear taking stuff, and it kind of, you can kind of craft it how you like, or receive it how you need to make it make sense or work for you. I think it's great. With visualization and audio, it kind of strips that from you, because it's giving you what it looks like. It's pitching you, I mean, maybe not the emotion, but you kind of see it and you hear it. Whereas books, it kind of lets you be more imaginative, and maybe as a reader that helps you, like giving you that leeway to kind of paint, fill in the gaps and paint your own pictures. That may benefit some
Mm.
people too, whereas you can't get that in movies because they give that to you.
Okay. 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 No, okay. That's a good
It's
point.
just like a different way to, maybe I look at it for some people.
The one book I'm reading right now. Well, I'm only reading one book, but the book I'm reading right now is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor
Okay.
Frankl.
Yeah.
And this is my second time reading it. And one of the reasons that I put on my list to reread is
Hmm.
because when I first read it, I had a very strong message that I read in the book.
Okay.
That was my that was my takeaway of the entire book. Like if I were
Yeah.
to summarize it, like
Yeah.
this is my message. And like the book is very popular. A lot of people have read it.
Yeah.
And I heard on a YouTube video or maybe a podcast, I don't remember, someone talking about the book and the takeaway from that book.
Hmm.
Which the takeaway from that book was just as good, but it was completely different.
Right.
So I was like, oh shoot, like that's how he took away from the book. That's what he took away from the
Okay.
book. So I was like, you know what? I need to reread it so I can get the full idea, not just the 2 sentences that he gave, but
Right.
I just want to get the full experience. And I mean, I guess maybe that might not be the imagination visualization, but being able to craft your own story from
Hmm.
the book, I do enjoy that because movies, you see what you see,
Right. Exactly. There's no
right?
filling the gaps. Yeah. And there may be some. Again, I think this would be a certain genre of movies where they pitch you a story and you kind of gotta like, or you're trying to like figure out the story. So it lets your mind wander a bit while you're like, oh, who did it, or like, how did it get here? But usually at the
Oh,
end, they bring it all together
yeah.
and they kind of tell you like they make it so you can piece everything together and see like what happened. But it allows you to think throughout the movie, depending on what the movie is. So there is some. I don't want to completely downplay movies. There can be an imaginative piece to it, but I think books allow for a lot more imagination. Can't talk today.
Mhm.
Um, Stemming from that, like, and we kind of alluded to this, that I think because books are more engaging, they're more they enhance you like cognitively,
Mhm.
because you have to. It is a more active. There's more of like active participation, and as I stated like earlier, you're kind of building that relationship. I think there's more of a cognitive function that could have benefits itself. Whereas, like you said, movies, you kind of just, you want to like zone out a bit and you don't have that cognitive function. So although it helps for a pleasurable experience or a relaxing experience, And again, that just goes to what you're looking for,
Yeah.
as the consumer, you know?
I just looked up benefits of reading a book,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of these it can definitely cross over to movies too.
Yeah.
But one of the things or a few of the things, I'll try to point out things that the movies don't usually have.
Okay.
But improved vocab, like
Yes, I
that's a
was gonna bring
big
that up.
thing.
Yes.
It, like I said, I didn't speak English. Like I started learning English in sixth grade.
Yes.
So when people were having full on conversation about whatever, like I was just learning the alphabet.
Yes.
And like vocab was a big thing for me for literally until I started reading, which was
Wow.
post college. I started
Wow.
reading really heavy until, and then
Yeah.
I
See,
literally had
that's
no idea
awesome.
what
Yeah.
these words meant.
Right. And I
And
want to go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done
no,
with
go
that.
ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I want to anchor on that because somebody's gonna be like, dude, you can learn new words from watching movies, documentaries. Absolutely. But now I'm gonna highlight my personal experience. I've countless times highlighted in a book a word, stopped reading, looked up a word. I don't think I've ever once heard somebody in a movie say something where I didn't know what it was and was like, oh, pause, or like, let me look up this word, because it's just in the flow of the movie. Like you don't want
Yeah,
to mess up the scene. You know what I mean? So you just go, and you might take note of it. You might look it up later. You'll probably forget. But all the time, I stop or highlight a word to go back, because so I don't have to stop. I'll just quickly highlight, or
yeah,
I'll literally stop. Where in a movie, there's no highlight function. There's no, you know what I mean? So yes, I think vocabulary, just to your point, is huge.
yeah. Next thing is, I'm skipping over a lot because
Okay.
it's going to apply to movies too. But the next thing I see for books is boost critical thinking, which again, the
Yes.
argument could be made. Yeah, you could get that from a movie, but I
Sure.
do think with the more imaginative piece
Yes.
from just reading it, trying to create that picture in your head, you kind of think outside of the box with the critical thinking piece more often. You use that muscle a little bit more than when you're passively watching a movie.
Right. And I think that's for all genres in both. Like any
Mm-hmm.
genre of reading, I think you critically think more than any genre in
Mm-hmm.
movie. Yeah.
And then it says reduce stress. I don't know about that. Improves your memory. I mean, it could go both ways. It says builds concentration. I think that's very big in
Mm,
our day and age, where our every day is filled with just stimulus on
yes.
like TikTok. That's
Yes.
like that's gonna be that stimulus is gonna be given to you in the first 5 seconds and probably continue on tapering off. And once it tapers off, you go get the next boost by
Yes.
swiping down. And yeah, I mean, there could be argument made that because of the medical advancements, we started to know more. But imagine, like, think about how many people are like, "Oh, I have ADHD or ADD." Not saying
Oh
anything's
yeah.
bad, but like,
Right.
I feel like when I was growing up, I never heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, there's definitely an uptick in um, those attention related
Mm-hmm.
things, and I think you could definitely help to build that concentration muscle with
Interesting.
reading more.
Okay.
'Cause it is hard to sit down in one place and
No,
to
it
read
is.
it right.
It is. Yeah, I'll fully admit that. Definitely. Yeah, that's a good one. You got any more on that list?
Nope.
Okay. So, I mean, yeah, I think book has some heavy hitters, things that are just so crucial and valuable that mostly you can't get in movies. But again, it's just these. I mean, all the things you just named are more frequent. You experience it more in books. One thing we didn't really talk about too much yet is the emotional impact, and I think this category is cool because I think it's very prevalent in both movies and books. I've had strong emotional reactions to books and I've had strong emotional reactions to movies. Now with this one, if I'm like quantifying my emotional reaction, just thinking back over the years, there's movies that have moved me to tears. Like I've literally cried about.
Yeah,
But like
yeah,
I can't think of a book where I cried.
yeah.
Now
You're right. You're
again,
right.
now again though, I think this is a genre bias because the movies I'm watching are probably pleasure, yeah, I'll say pleasurable, but like aimed at inciting these emotions. Whereas the books, again, I'm trying to draw things from. They're very very specific. So, in my personal experience, I've had larger emotional reactions to movies, but I think both of them can be emotionally engaging.
Yeah. Okay. No,
You know what I mean?
I guess I think I'm on the same page with you
Okay.
because I've cried it with so many different movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be like some dumb fiction, and
Right.
I'll start crying because it's like I don't know. I'm
Oh,
an emotional. I'm an emotional guy, I
me and you
guess.
both. Dude, Lion King gets so many people. Like, I don't think I ever cried on Lion King, but I know some people are like, dude, even Lion King, man, like, it gets me. Man, yeah, it's, I don't know.
But with I don't know how many books I read at this point. Like definitely over 100.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I teared. Just came. I never cried on a book. I
Yeah.
teared up at like
Mhm.
one book, which was like a World War II book,
Mm.
and I think that hit me a little bit harder, just because I'm both American and Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a
Okay. Right.
little bit of history on both sides
Right.
with
Right.
World War II. But yeah, the closest I got was not. I mean, like it got watery,
Right. Right.
right? And even with books, like I don't get angry when I'm reading a book when I hear some, dumb narrative from the example that they're trying to make. But then definitely emotion. There's definitely a roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
with watching a movie, but not. I don't know if this is emotion, but the how it hits you is
Yeah.
different for a book than a movie. If that makes
Yes.
sense.
Yes. I was going to say, I'm going to elaborate on that in reference to how it hits you. Because, like, a book, for example, I feel like for, like, a character development, like, a book has more, I'm going to say time and space, but in those pages, it has more time to develop a character. So you might get little nuggets about somebody, little details, maybe about how this character looks, maybe their daily routine that just builds on the image of that character in a book, which again could end up hitting you emotionally throughout that whole novel, book, whatever. But for a movie, I don't know, let's say it's a scene where somebody's getting killed, and like when you can see the pain in their eyes,
Oh
like
yeah,
see the emotion in their face, see how their body is reacting, like that does something that they can describe in great detail in a book, but it's just simply not visual. Like
yeah.
again, in a book, you're never gonna jump. I'm gonna go ahead and jump on a limb and say a book is not gonna physically make you move or like quiver or like shake when reading a book. A movie has the ability to like throw something in a scene that will physically make your body like move or startle. You know what I mean? That's a different effect and emotion that I don't think you can get from a book. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have the audio. It doesn't have that visual, quick, stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point though, you can emotionally attach differently to those different like forms of medium.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why I think the emotional impact or value category is so cool in this particular comparison because they give you different things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if I can pick one. So if from an emotional impact standpoint, book or movie, which do you think is able to deliver more of an emotional impact?
Probably a movie. I
Yeah.
think movie. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll give
Yeah,
it
that
to
one's so hard,
movie.
but I'll okay. We'll go. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to side with movie on that one. Okay. Okay. Sweet.
Just a random point from I don't know, we talked about it maybe 10, 20 minutes ago. But the volume, it kind of stems off the volume piece that we were talking about, how there's so many more books on a topic rather than a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is I was just thinking about it like, this is a guess. This could not be.
Okay.
I think I'm right. It could not be. But there's so many more scholars that is very, in the top 1% of a knowledge level compared to the average, that's able to deliver through a book than producers, right? Because I think books are so interesting because you can take someone that's their whole life's mission was to do this one thing.
Yeah.
It took them 35 years of their professional career to achieve this or learn this thing or discover something.
Yeah.
They can put it in a book and you can get the information in a day.
Okay.
Worth 35, 40 years of experience or whatever the time frame is, right?
Yeah.
But then the creator of the book is that, expert. I guess this is kind of tying into the educational piece. but with the creator of the movie, I mean, there's a lot of people involved in it, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
then the main guy that you think about is the director.
Okay, right.
Directors more, you know, their skill set comes from the ability to hold attention, to create a beautiful scene, and
Mm-hmm.
so again, completely different. But this is another piece. I just thought about it from the conversation earlier that we talked about.
Yes. And kind of on a similar note, I mean, I do think movies are cool because again, whatever the movie is on, like a lot of times the producer or whoever's doing like the screenwriting or playwright, um, usually like researches whatever that movie's on. Like if the movie is based in, uh, like let's say like Japan, like people will go to Japan and like live over there for a while to see the little nuances in the culture to like
Mm-hmm.
come back and implement that in the movie. So you get these
Okay, that's
little
good.
nuggets. And maybe again, it can be a visual bias, like books just aren't visual. Um, but there is some level of like dedication in the craft of making a movie as well, um, as like a book. But also on that same note, kind of conversely, um, I just quickly Googled like which takes longer to write, like a book, which I thought I knew the answer, but like a book or a screenplay, and books take way longer. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a reason for that because it's like more detailed, which kind of backs maybe or corroborates some of the things we're saying, like which is why you can get more out of a book. Like it just talks about specific topics more in depth. Whether this is education or not, like even
Mm-hmm.
if like a love scene in a movie versus a love scene in a book, like a love scene in a movie might be on the screen. Again, this is not backed by any like statistic, but maybe like 27s, like a build up, flirt, kiss, boom, whatever. Whereas like in a book, I don't know how you compare like screen time to like the pages,
Oh
but it
yeah.
just gives more detail and it takes longer to write. Probably because whoever's authoring it, they're just I don't know. There's just another level of detail in a book. Um, that again, which is just the nature of being a book, I guess that I think sometimes might not get in a movie, which goes into multiple things we said. Maybe why it grabs your attention more. Maybe why we think or me and you like get more from a book. So I don't know, just something to think about. That books take way longer to produce, which I think allows it to give a certain level of details than
Mm-hmm.
certain movies. And again, I'm sure the movies it differs. Like for a documentary, we're probably way more research, way more, so it depends. But I just wanted to throw that comparison of how long it takes to create one versus the other in there too, for whatever it's worth. Okay, in this topic, I do want to throw out because I know in thinking about this, or even as a listener, and you kind of said it earlier, it's hard to compare because we're completely dismissing podcasts, we're
Yes.
completely dismissing like YouTube, like educational videos that is a video for that particular topic, which might do the same thing as a book. Um, But again, for the sake of the conversation, we're going to stick with books and movies. But I did want to acknowledge that obviously, right, those other mediums exist,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what makes it interesting in this world today. I was listening to another podcast that talked about how back in the day you had newspapers, um, movies, books, but now with the migration of, or really not migration, but like the evolution of digital media, certain realms are blending where
Mm.
like a newspaper was to give you information written. I mean, a movie's kind of been a movie, but now you have podcasts, which in this podcast they were arguing. They were like, "Is a podcast?" This was really fun. They were like, what did they say? Is a podcast a like audible book, or is it like a narrated? Is it an audible movie? Like you don't get the visual, but you get the narration, or is that you like all these forms of media are blending together. There's way more
Okay.
categories of
Yeah.
media now where it's hard to discern. Like if a movie and a book had a baby, is it a YouTube video? Is it a podcast? Like you can also listen and you can watch. They phrase it way better, but it's just like the media now is there's way more avenues of media and it's way more saturated. Like it's just way more ways to get it.
Oh, that's interesting. I never
Um,
thought about the podcast. Like podcast is just basically like a
Kind of like a
guided conversation.
yeah, you know what I mean?
That's about it.
That kind of didn't
Yeah, that's
exist in the past. So it's somewhere between like a book and a movie.
interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. So Obviously, right? We're not talking about those things, but I don't know. It was just kind of something cool to think about.
Yeah. I mean, like you're right. I mean, look at the way people are learning. Like you can
Oh yeah.
learn with virtual reality headsets.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's going to give you the immersiveness to like. I know I seen like surgical procedures that you can practice in VR.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Crazy. Whereas before you might want to watch like videos of it or you might want to read about it, but like now you can like digitally, virtually practice it. Like how crazy is that?
My
Go ahead.
when I started at my current company, the training they send you training for 8 weeks or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and in that 8 weeks, I there was like a VR module for about
Really?
like 2 weeks where you do hands on
Wow.
like things to
Right.
you know.
So
So I
this is a
thought that was
favorite
kind
book.
of yeah.
Wow, that's integrated. That's super cool. I had no idea like companies were even. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it's cool to hear like a personal story about.
Mm-hmm.
Something also AI related that's very relevant to this topic. And I haven't read about this myself, but if anybody knows anything about it, or I would love to like, like drop a link on it, if someone has one. But apparently it is in the works. I'll say, I guess I don't know if it exists, but AI is gonna give the ability for movies to be directed by the viewer. What I'll say is like they're gonna make a movie, right, and you can watch the movie, but it's integrated. It's interactive. That's what I'm looking for. So like
Hmm.
you can the movie exists, right? And you can watch the movie from start to end as you want. But at any point in the movie, you can modify the character, how they look, what their qualities are. You can modify
Oh,
the storyline. So you can rewrite the whole script as the viewer. You can
oh
rewrite the
man,
digital as the viewer. Like you can change scenes, or you can just change the ending, like let the whole movie be as scripted and just change the ending. You can change the beginning and see how the AI forms the rest of the movie. And I was like, this dude at work was telling me about this. I was like, dude, it's like the ultimate interactive experience. So like, for the lazy viewers, you're like, you dude, I just want to watch a movie. You can watch a movie. But for those people that are like, if that movie would have ended like this, or like, dude, that character sucked, you can now change that. And
damn
I was
that.
like, dude, what is going on? So
Like remember the Titans. I just wish they played pickleball instead of football.
right?
Like, I mean,
Mobile, yeah. Or I wish this team won instead of that team. Yeah. So again, I haven't read it. I haven't seen any video because I usually like to watch like little YouTube videos about stuff like that. He just told
huh?
me about it, like last week, but I was like, that is nuts.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that comes to fruition, or again, if anybody else has like seen videos about that, I'd love to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. All right. So I think we got a good synopsis of both sides. If we can, so I'll end it. I don't know. Do you have any more thoughts on any of these categories before we kind of come to a conclusion here?
No conclusion, and then we gotta do our
And then we
one
got to do
book
the one.
and
Oh yeah,
one
yeah. I didn't
movie. Yeah,
forget.
yeah.
Yeah. I think so. If you were to sum up all books, all movies, how they hit both emotionally, intellectually, the depth of the interaction with both written and digital content. Well, not content. Well, because we're sticking with movies. All right, my personal opinion. I think there's just more oomph, and I got to go with books. I'm I'm thinking books.
Yeah, I mean, I'm team books too,
I'm
and
team books.
I'm team books just because like I gained so much.
Yeah.
Like I attribute part of my success in life or part of where I'm at today because of
Mm,
certain books, and I
right.
just can't. I can't say any of those because I watched this movie. Like my life turned out to be better. I can't say that about a movie.
Right. And I do want to caveat that, right? Because this can be combated by a lot of things. If I was like, hey, I want to relax, I'm gonna pick up a movie probably every time. But I think kind of to your point, I just have more takeaways and more categories of my life from books. Like I get entertainment. I get entertainment and probably like an emotional rise from movies. But
Mm-hmm.
from books, I get entertainment. I get emotion. I gain things intellectually. Uh, I increase my reading skills because you read at jobs, you read for your kids, you read
Mm-hmm.
for all things in life, you read in the bills. Like just my ability to digest and read more quickly. I get that from books. I get relatability in the world. Well, yeah, you can get relatability from movies, but from categories of things I can pull takeaways from. For me, is books, which is why I'm team books.
Yeah, you pretty much. I mean, you besides the visual, you pretty much get the same thing, but books it may give you a little bit more.
Yeah,
additional stuff.
All right, you heard it here first. Rebel Wisdom Squad is we're team books over here. All right. On that note, you kick us off with the books. I'll kick us off with the movies. Starting with books, if you could recommend one book right now, and it doesn't, I mean, it's up to you. If you want to give your favorite book of all time, the favorite book you read recently, best, whatever, however you want to frame it, be what you got for us.
Yeah, so I've been more cautious when I recommend books now because I see a lot of more different perspectives now.
Yes,
but on the financial piece, personal finance, investing, like money related things, Rich Dad Poor Dad was something that literally changed the trajectory of my life.
Okay, that's heavy.
But I understand people may not align. Even if they learn something from the book, they just may not align with that thing that it's taught in the book.
Yeah.
So I stopped. I do put that in there. Like, hey, like this book changed my life, but it may be different for you. I still recommend it. So therefore, I have most recently been recommending Psychology of Money over Rich Dad Poor Dad. Well, Psychology of Money is like, regardless of who reads it, like it's gonna be a good book. Like 99% of the people will agree with that.
Okay.
So that's on the personal finance thing, but just as like a one book that's I'm gonna try to read this book every single year for as long as I'm gonna read it. Is basic. It's The One Thing by Gary Keller. The premise of the book is, you just basically focus on one thing to master your craft, and there's so much benefits to it. But as like a dude, I'm sure a lot of people can relate, but I get that shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like, oh dude, like I learn about something and I do it for 3 months. I'm like, oh dude, but this sounds so cool. So I also do it.
Yeah.
So maybe I do it in tandem or I drop the previous thing off.
Got you.
It's not that I need to stick to what I have, and it's just like getting me back on track. 1 year is a long time,
Mm-hmm.
So it goes by quick, but when you're living in it, it takes a while to get through, and you can definitely, derail your personal achievements, professional achievements, whatever you want to call it. You're going to get derailed. It could get derailed. So I definitely recommend that for anyone. It's not a long book either. So.
Okay. Dang, that's good, man. You just said a lot of good stuff. I have not read Psychology of Money. I have read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I have read, thanks to you,
The One Thing.
The One Thing, yeah. Both read both of those, Rich Dad Poor Dad and The One Thing, were both courtesy of you. So, you're always looking out for me in more ways than just literature. But I appreciate you for that. Also, like both of those, I think I need to reread Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think The One Thing I took more out of, just as I'm thinking off the top of my head right now, without like cracking them open and like seeing what I highlighted in them. But yeah, I probably need to reread that one.
Psychology of Money, you need to read that.
I'm almost positive it's on my list.
You'll probably, everything you read, you're not going to learn anything new. Probably not. But like how they put it together,
right?
It like creates a story that I think you'll benefit from it.
Right. Okay. I was gonna stick to one, but after hearing you and you articulated those three so well, I might give two. It's hard when we'd say like my all-time favorite. You just start sifting through books in your head. But if I just go on my gut reaction, like the first book that immediately pops in my head, it's Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Oh, Phil Knight. Yeah, that was a good book.
This book I have a personal attachment to, and then just like a general, I think it's great. So I'm kind of a Nike fanatic, I'll admit. And so and this book was actually gifted to me. I didn't even seek it out. My high school football coach sent it to me. Actually, both books I'm about to talk about, my high school football coach sent to me. So great dude. Shout out to Coach Becklum. But That is probably maybe my all-time favorite, but like definitely like my top. Yeah,
There's
probably
a
my all-time favorite.
sprinkle of business in there too.
So I was gonna say, right? So I have personal connections. I love Nike. It let me see what Nike was built off of, the premise of Nike, how it started, all the way up to what it is now. And actually, it doesn't even really talk about Nike now. It's more so like how it was founded and
Hmm.
built up. Um, but yes, it you can read that book and take away things on personal relations. You can read that book and take away things on a great company or how to start a business. You can just see the inner workings of a mind of someone starting kind of from the beginning. And it's a motivational book. And again, so it's all of those things. And for me, it was just like it gave me insight on a company I'm very curious about and very loyal to. I'm a victim of brand loyalty on this one. I'm not gonna lie. So I
Checks over
have, yeah,
stripes.
checks over stripes all day. You already know, baby. Yeah, big time. So yeah, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I've gifted it to a couple people. Highly recommend for multiple reasons. There's many things you can take away. Fortunately, that one is a little bit of a longer read. Nothing too crazy though.
One
And
of
this,
two.
go ahead.
One of two books that ever read in one sitting. One of them was
Really?
Shoe Dog. Yeah.
Wow, that's huge, bro. That yeah, because that's juicy. Yeah, I didn't read it in one sitting, but it was hard for me to put it down. And then the other one is a more recent read that um I also so I know I told you about because we talk about books all the time, but it's Outlive by I think Peter Attia. I don't know if you got to it yet. You haven't read it yet, have you?
That dude is thick.
Yeah. So this is a yeah this is a big one. But it was again more, and I think part of the reason I liked it is because it's unlike a lot of things we read. It's self help. It's self help, but it's more from a see. There we go. It's self help, but it's more in a medical sense. And the overall premise of the book is how to extend life, pretty much how to maximize your living, and it attacks it from every angle. Um, and it was just eye opening for a guy who's in his like probably I would say just completed the first third of what is a typical lifespan. Hopefully, I can extend that, courtesy of Outlive. But there's so many things to think about from what you eat, how you live, how you sleep, habits, and I was just like
Mm,
almost overwhelmed with knowledge. And
I
it,
need
I
to read
mean,
that.
for anybody, if you care about yourself, like in not even medically, but medical is a huge portion of it. It's written by a I'm gonna say he's an ex-surgeon. He's a surgeon, but I don't think he really practices anymore. But he has that's his background. Yeah, if you care about yourself or care to better your health in any way, again, long read, but definitely worth it. So
Okay.
those are my two for books, right?
I'm gonna read it.
Yeah,
I will for sure read it this
got to,
year.
bro. Cool. So that's my recent that's for my recent recommendation. Shifting into movies, again, there's just so many. I think there's more books that exist in movies. I don't know. That could be a false statement. But for me, I've definitely watched more movies than I've read books.
Mm.
So I maybe that's why this is a little harder for me. But to make it easier, I'll go with recent. And it's a series, but the Bad Boys series. There's a new Bad Boys movie that came out maybe a month ago. I just saw it last week, and it is really good. All the way from back in the day, it was like a great movie. And some movies over the series they kind of lose value. People are like, oh man, they should just left it the first one, the second one. I think this is Bad Boys 3. It might have been the fourth. I think it was the third. Don't quote me on that. But this recent Bad Boys that just came out again like a month ago was really good, and it's an action thriller. But a lot of movies, whether no matter what category, has some familial connection. I'm starting to realize that, like scary movies, they play on family aspects. Dead family members. Action movies, they're chasing
Mm.
down, they're trying to kill your mom or dad. Love stories. I mean, obviously it's a love interest, so. But a lot of movies they'll play off familial connections, and this one is an action, but it has that it pulls in your heartstrings with like family connections,
Okay.
and it
Okay.
was just good. It was just good. So that again, I'll do that one because I recently saw it, and it was also one of the better movies I've seen in recent time. But I've also watched the original ones, like the OG movies, when I was growing up. So the Bad Boys series is just a really good one. And Will Smith is one of the leading actors, and he is like probably my favorite actor of all time. Whose autobiography I've also read.
Oh, interesting.
Quick
Huh.
connection there, which was also phenomenal. I read it on my last
Huh.
ship, and it was great. Yeah, that's all I got for movies.
Rush Hour.
Mm. Interesting.
Very prevalent in this podcast.
Subliminal ties.
But yeah, mine's probably, like I said, I watched it maybe like 8 to 10 times in the past, and is Inception.
Oh my God.
Just that,
Dude,
science,
talk
dude.
about just makes you think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Rush Hour, honestly, too. While we were joking, but it's classic.
That's a good movie too. Yeah,
classic, classic series as well.
Yeah. I think back in the day, whatever Chris Tucker was on, that
Dude,
it was just funny.
It was hilarious.
It was funny.
Yeah. Awesome. Great, dude. That was a fun talk. All right. Man, that's what we got. You see, we got the book recommendations, we got the movie recommendations. Dissecting the books and movies, it's a great topic to get into, that if you just want to kind of spark up some back and forth, a good talk to have amongst people. But Rebel Wisdom, we're Team Books. We can argue about it. Hit us up, let us know. But that's what we got for you guys. As always, thanks for listening. If you have any recommendations as topics as well, we'd love to hear those. That's what we got. We're out.